Assalamualaikum and very good morning to my fellow audiences. My name is Erni Faridatul Husna Ishak. So for today, I'm going to present on my thesis titled Analysis of Form and Content based on Malaysian Imagery and Culture in the selected installation works of Zulkifli Yusof. And Zulkifli Yusof, as an artist through studies on his works as the artistic practices in Malaysia, has shown the process of breaking the barrier in creating art by the 1970s. Malaysian artists challenged the never-ending possibilities that can be done in and out of the canvas, but at that point with more complex understanding of the subjects and in relevance to the statement, the methods in presenting one's works has always showcased the likelihood to be influenced by the specific drawing styles used in creating the works. On the contrary, the ideas, knowledge, materials used and subjects in the works themselves may affect the way the audience decide to see them. Objectives of the study for my thesis is to identify the presence of form and content based on Malaysian imageries and culture inside the installation works of Zulkifli Yusof, and also studying the changes of artist installation works throughout the years. For problem statement, based on my observation on Malaysian art scene, although there are presence of research on installation works, but the quantity of the materials are limited, as Zulkifli stated that his works questions their benefits and relations to the religion, race, and country. It also promotes the idea of patriotism, which we can see in his installation works. The scope of the study will focus on the significant installation works of Zulkifli Yusof, which contain a presence of imagery and discussions of culture, which the Malaysians could relate to as they observe the works within the space of their environments. The method of research used in this thesis will be the qualitative method. By means, the research will involve the process of collecting data about Zulkifli Yusof based on the primary and secondary resources. The thesis is created with hope that it will function as a good reference for artists, viewers, and art enthusiasts. Installation artworks of Zulkifli Yusof are based on specific issues instead of traditional representational works of art, which typically describe presentations just like a photograph. So for the Cap 2 will be about literature review. So by 20th century Western art knowledges, including artistic styles, reflection, or uh, understanding on past art historians' theories and also artworks, have become a way that our artists look for as a resource in order to look for more information by Malaysian modernists. In other words, the requirement of balance between form and content of artworks by an artist play a main role in ensuring successful delivering message to the audience. These are the definitions for installation art based on the Oxford Dictionary of Art and also the Glossary of Art. These are the definitions based on the statements made by figures in history of art. Art installation are separated to two categories, which are field-based installation and also site-specific installation. For chapter 3, I will discuss on the biography of the artist. There was a strong build-up that reflected an entirely new potential in installation art. Meanwhile, he is not the founding father of installation art, as Lee Kian Sing, through his work Process in Poker Game, was the earliest to establish the formal usage of installation as an artwork by winning the very early Young Contemporaries competition in the 70s. He is very much creating a name as a storyteller by challenging the norm of nation art scene, that is to create a crude imagery to tell the stories, which only the Malaysians will know through the respect of our own culture, not only as a Malaysian but also as a Muslim. It was in 1988 when installation works reappeared, or early 70s to be precise, displaying stiff competition between Tan Chin Kwan and Zulkifli Yusof. The interplay of installation, drawing, and painting has constituted his major approach even until today. For chapter 4, the topic will be about research on the presence of balance between form and content in Zulkifli Yusof's selected installation works. The style of Zulkifli Yusof in his installation works. Zulkifli Yusof's works are a rich stew of archival material, heritage, and superstitions, all from a deep-seated interest steered by his educationist father. He explores this realm by employing intricately crafted installations, paintings, and mixed media works to present compelling contemporary works that are nostalgic yet thought-provoking. It is of no surprise that the presence of nationalism and reminiscence of nostalgia or going back to the past have been the focus of Zulkifli Yusuf through his works. Although the way he established these ideas have changed as time moves on, the Malaysian artist uses the basis of relation and holding on the term indirect patriotism or direct patriotism as they presented the visuals. Some are in the form of complete opposition of what that is supposed to resemble. At first, the usage of these messages is not that common due to the interest and expertise leaning more towards respectable traditional inherited talents such as traditional craft making for some individuals, which have been the image of Southeast Asian for years, even before the colonization of the West took place. In his works, Zulkifli showcased the bravery and determination of his brushwork through strong use of scraggly and rough lines. Next will be the discussion based on from his in selected installation works of Zulkifli Yusof in 1980s. The installation works which I choose are Tanpa Tajuk One and also Dari Hitam ke Putih. Firstly, the discussion will be made between the artwork shown before, which is Tanpa Tajuk, based on the aspect of minimalism in terms of usage and arrangement of materials used. The first artwork consists of a variety of small chess pieces, which are arranged in piles of four in a row, which its purpose is to create the illusion or impression of individuals lining up representing figure of people. The structure, although enormous in size, the usage of materials by means types of materials are minimal to emphasize the importance of the chess in the artwork. The structure which supported the work bear resemblance to not only a bridge but also a highway overpass, which provide an overview of the chess pieces from the top. The situation of the pieces of the work reveal the impression of movement in one direction, either forward or the opposite, resulting in visibility of good relationship and uniformity between the chess pieces. And the movement also resembled the synchronization of one movement and voice of thoughts by more than one individuals, as in the role of children against the teachers in the music video of Pink Floyd for the song Another Break in the Wall. So as a reference, in the music video, the member Roger Waters continued his fight in order to express his feeling of discontent against the unreasonably unpleasant experience with his teachers as he was younger. Next, for the work of Dari Hitam ke Putih, the artwork shows the interrelation of wood pieces, which are tied together and partially wrapped in some sorts of pieces of cloth. The full structure later created a recognizable sculpture of a bridge in a form of abstraction, unlike the structure of obvious imagery as seen in his before work, which is Tanpa Tajuk, as discussed before, as to become the main attraction and influence in his later installation works throughout the early 1990s until late of the decade. As seen in his later artworks, from the Power One, Immunity, and Don't Play During Maghrib, the bridge or connector between the front part of the works to the background, as seen to form an architectural hierarchy of the artworks. This artwork only showcase only a few types of materials, which are wooden rod and calculus pieces to tie around the rods. The cloth are bandaged around the slit and studded wooden rod, while the pieces of black cloth positioned in the very middle of the wooden rod at the middle part structure gives out a visibility of being trapped in between the white cloth, which covers the left and right parts of the wooden rods. This artwork delivers the imagery of yin and yang, which covers the personality battles of facing hardship in life. Both of their artworks have successfully showcased the good relations and compatibility between the materials, although they are simple. The final works also present themselves as a whole structure of fascination and confusion, but with a recognizable imagery of good bond, as if creators wanted to keep the original properties outside appearance of the materials at its best. The first two artworks by Zulkifli Yusof is not like some of its later modern installation works in year 2010 and above, as these works are not embraced with the inclusion of graphic media as an inclusion in the process of creating the works, such as collage and digital works. Zulkifli decided to put an emphasis on the visible relationship shown by the materials with each other, as well with the space around and between them. The first artwork, tanpa tajuk, exhibits a one-of-a-kind way of being simple, even though sizable content may be bigger than the others but meaningful in its content. According to Zulkifli mindset, the idea of the importance of being invested in realizing your purpose as an artist, better as a Malaysian citizen, choosing the theme of unity, individual imagery to represent him well in terms of patriotism. The materials are temporary and the artwork is not exactly site-specific installation, and it is not important to count exactly space as part of its environment. Next are the form is selected installation works of Zulkifli Yusof in the 1990s. For this section, it features three of Zulkifli's other artworks, which are Power One, Immunity, and also Dialogue 2. Zulkifli arranges his installation pieces to truly emphasize the equal relationship between the artwork, the viewer, and the space that we can see in the work. He wanted the viewers to understand the relationship between the materials which make up the artwork. At the same time, he believes that attaching human feeling to his sculpture works by playing around with overall setting and mood is important in conveying an invisible and abstract message to viewers. However, the relationship between materials is also important as it helps the ideas to be delivered. Interestingly, through direct or indirect deliverance of message, how will viewers be able to include themselves in the reality through the imagery of the artwork? As an intention to make it clear to the viewers on the literal meaning of his works, he made many different sets of works created under the same medium and form which can help viewers to recognize the works better, as in Power One and Immunity, which are of the same series. The viewers will, through their observation of these works, able to gain the ability to know Zulkifli himself as an artist better along with his signature artistic style. Zulkifli is inspired by the idea of inviting bad energy for the sake of good to the setting of his works. So observe through the words of Yap Wing Chun. In the three artworks, there are direction of hardness and consistency of the brushwork, heavy use of monochrome through the sketches in the background, and earth colors as seen here in the usage of wood rods in the installation structure with the some of the materials used are chairs or a tall and big sitting base along with bridges as seen in Power One and Immunity. As along with bridges in order to symbolize an individual's progress to dimensional symbols and three-dimensional symbols, including medals and trophies, positioned anonymously throughout the artworks. Power One and Immunity represent of shape and form are of different dimensions. According to Zanita Anwar, mentioned in Reactions on Critical Strategies, the art pieces in these artworks are to be small or huge in size, but the pieces are attached to each other to form a combination of both sizes, which intimidates the viewer. The presence of sword, which is positioned next to the one in power, demonstrate the person is protected by his or her invisibility and authority in comparison to the installation usually connected to him from the 1980s. The artist uses various materials and techniques, including painting and drawing. There also uh, presence of fierce and solid mythic pose, which are almost totem-like, as in this work of Dialogue 2. Some are hang above the artwork. The pieces of materials at the back. The vision of a bridge at the front part of these artworks had just recently begun to pull the tourists into the influence of a traditional ceremonial site. The power show looked like a royal altar, which is common during the traditional Malaysian era from back then. Two throne like structures around it, while in the middle there are headgear depicting various classes of the Malay social hierarchy. Zulkifli also was seen uh, as a major contribution to the implementation of visual imagery with the culture and religious taboos as seen here. The work focuses on social discourse and critique, which incorporates different types of expression, which modes of treatment. The work explores the issue of the Maghrib or the Das, where the Malays or Muslim are performing prayers and other religious practices such as fasting. So the children from the specific race and religion are warned by the parents or relatives not to play outside the house at night because the ghosts and dark powers appear at that moment. In this series, which also contains several ceramic statues or evil spirits, the art advocates potential thoughts and visions found in the imagination of small children. This, as we can see in this artwork, there also an exhibition of monochromatic shades, a mute color on a light plain background. The composition of steel rods are structured but simply organic or asymmetrical, as it shares the same visual property of the deconstructivism art movement. Deconstructivism is the word used to characterize a movement in the architecture that originated in the 1980s and dismissed conventional architectural essential premises. Architects who had worked in this tradition rejected anonymous functionalists, relying instead on abstract geometries and surface treatments. The work consists of a variety of media and techniques, including painting, drawing, sculpture, printmaking, and installation art. The majority of roots, as they are stamped on different surfaces on the artwork, as we can see here, characterized to different parts, which are the ones scattered all over the walls, and also uh, the more organized prints, as we can see, uh, the one with the mat, and on the tools, and also the one in the cupboard at the very middle of the space. So for this work, he created a story of typical Malay boy back in the early postmodern times by implementing the familiar image of family with orchid. All the materials present in the work are made of wood, which is a great surface to absorb ink depending on the type of ink used, let it be pigment ink or dye ink. Hence, the usage of printmaking as a technique in visualizing the imagery of fruits is a smart choice as it creates a rich colored stain on the woody surfaces. Next, on the work of Rukun Kara Voice 3, it showcased Zulkifli's embrace to the rise of technology through his approach to digital collage. Zulkifli is not only ready to experiment with new mediums, and he has approached variety types of medium at the same time, but to the contrast of his growth as an artist, he managed to document his vision on the application of Malaysian imagery in his works. His love for his country never fades, giving him an opportunity to share his traits of patriotism with other people, but at the same time, he can criticize the political system and Malaysians for not showing an agreement or disagreement with the political issues surrounding Malaysia, as I mentioned before. His typography-based canvas strips are single-species type, combining printmaking and painting skills, undeniably complete with elements of fine art. His unique technique transforms print and collages not just words but standard colors to a slightly unusual work. In comparison to other artworks mentioned here before, the artwork gleams with splatter of colors, delivering a sense of unity and rhythm based on how the repetition of colors on the stones and artwork general are organized and more eye-catching. The positioning of the gems, stone or resin pieces nearby the middle part of the artwork give an illusion of smaller planets orbiting around the bulging gem in the very middle of the artwork, resembling the sun. The interaction and sense of movement occurred in the piece through opposition of the neatly drawn lines surrounding the repetition of flower imageries and square or rectangular shapes throughout the artworks which complement the geometric shapes and in front of the work as they are drawn placed neatly in straight line contrast to the lines wrapping the remaining shapes on top of it. Next, what are the changes seen in the context of form and content and seen in his works? So by the 1980s and 1990s, Zulkifli is open to bring the viewer to the past uh, as he discussed the ultimate and highest symbol to man by using traditional Malay weapons and headgear. And once integrity becomes more virtuous when power is properly used, artists' abhorrence towards arrogance, perjury, and brutality, which often comes with power, all human craves for this worldly status and power, sincerely or otherwise. The struggles are unusual. If obstacles emerge, even when one is sincere in the pursuit of reaching for a higher level. So the usage of old and modern symbolism gives a viewer a comparative understanding between two different spans of time. Nation also experienced royal injustice back then, which suddenly cast the work as the most meaningful. Installation art had become supreme medium for social commentary. These points which are seen in this commonly discussed work, which are power one and also immunity. He also established the presence of social commentary and critique in his word dialogue too. By using using the taboo back then in the past, Muslim children are told not to play outside. So the work's evocation of the possible fears and images contained in the minds of small children as the realized this work, which includes several ceramic sculptures and evil spirits, which I mentioned before. How does Zulkifli delivers his idea effectively or not effectively through his works to the audience according to the balanced presence of one content? So based on observation on his works before, it is decided that he is interpretative, never cloyingly obvious and or aggressive, and he also passionately clear and confident in his observations. As a good example, tanpa tajuk, his earliest historical work show that Zulkifli has a strong narrative sense, which allowed the audience in making their own mind on his vision. In his work tanpa tajuk, he uses chess, which is an excellent metaphor for power and its games, which is an obvious imagery for the one who uh, observes the works. So the usage of geometry to represent objects arranged in front of the background creates space and direction which draws us to stare at the artwork as a whole. Uh, this point which is seen in his works before, the which is the Rukunegara to Poetry and also Kebun Pak Awang, which although does not exactly position symmetrically, but it gives the illusion of a very balanced and symmetrical arrangement of all the subjects and materials in the artworks. In contrast to his work of Do Not Play During Maghrib, which is not a symmetrical or symmetrical works, but however, the arrangement of the artworks are put in a way that the artist actually uses the space given in order to create a very fantasy-like uh, arrangement of works. He also deal with present day realities as discussed before in Pawan and Immunity. Suitable with the present day audience at that time, the Malay story of Sultan Mahmud was that who desired that he wanted any cause was recognized and related to the situation of Pawan cremation in list is discussed in Immunity and Power 1. So he wanted to point the wrongdoings of individuals in power, anyway whether they be pop culture icon, presidents or husband as seen in his two earlier works, Tanpa Tajuk and also Darah Hitam ke Putih. Lastly, for chapter 5, conclusion, the usage of indirect or indirect imagery showcase an artist's idea. So Malaysian culture established the presence of racial unity and everyday life. No one can escape the feeling of nostalgia, which as seen in Zulkifli Yusof himself, through the idea delivered in his works, also the usage of patriotism as a main topic in order to discuss his uh, views of nostalgia and also relations to the Malaysian issues. Experience in the West help artists to appreciate the country. Good relationship between materials can lead to successful message delivery. And lastly, implementation of message in Malaysian art established uh, as early from the 70s through the duo of Reza Piadasa and Musa Sulaiman Esa. In towards a mystical reality, we started the trend of using message, but with not truly focus on the usage of materials, which not necessarily have to be pleasing in the eyes. So that will be all from me. Thank you for your attention.